Hello, welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to be talking about COVID-19 and how it affected our lives during the senior year. And I'm here with Shawnee and Tony and Brenda. If you guys want to say hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay, so I'm going to be asking questions about COVID. So the first question is, what was your greatest loss?
One of my greatest losses was losing grad night because I was really looking forward to going this year with all my friends, and I feel like it's not the same senior year without grad night.
I really missed the football games this year just because it was supposed to be like our last year all together with our class, and the guys had a great team this year.
They had a good year this year for football, so
I
agree
was
with
really
that.
excited to see that, but it was a bummer we couldn't.
Okay, Shawnee.
And I can agree with Brenda. I really missed the sports, even though I didn't get to play this year because of my knee. But yeah, I missed the sports, watching them. And
I also agree to that as well. I just missed the whole senior experience of just going to homecoming dances and going to games, and that's about it.
Just the overall senior experience.
Yeah. Okay, and another question is, how did you survive lockdown?
Food.
Sleeping, naps.
Honestly,
A lot of
TikTok.
hobbies, different hobbies.
Yeah, I agree. I started a whole bunch of different things.
yeah, I started to cook too. And
Oh.
I never knew how to cook, and now I know, so that's pretty cool.
Can't relate.
But definitely eating a lot, but yeah. Okay, next question. Who did you pod with?
I just went with my family. We mostly stayed inside, but when we'd go outside.
Yeah, with me, it was just me and my mom, and my dog. So.
Same, just my family. And
Yeah, me too. Me and my family and some close friends.
Yeah.
How did COVID affect your family?
For the first couple of weeks, it made my family closer because we just spent a lot more time together.
Yeah. What about yours?
For my family, I guess they were kind of tough because everybody gets on everybody's nerves since there's so many people in a tight space, but we're getting through it. It's fine now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of arguing, because I see my mom every day, and we're in the same house, seeing each other every day. I think it's So what about you, Shawnee?
Well, at first it was good, and then I don't know, kind of argued a little bit because too much time with my mom. Ooh. Just getting out a little bit.
What saved your life during COVID?
I think being in communication with my friends helped me a lot.
FaceTime.
Yeah, playing games.
Yeah, playing different games too.
Yeah. Same.
How did you guys feel about returning school?
It was
I was
weird.
excited, but it wasn't the same at first. It was
Yeah.
kind of
I felt a little awkward.
Yeah.
Kinda
I think last
socially
week for
awkward.
me, since it was my first week back, it was really weird, and I was just trying to get used to everything.
Yeah.
How about you?
I actually liked it better than Zoom because I think it's just for me it's difficult to learn over an iPad than just be at school.
Yeah.
And I
same.
kind of missed it too, so I liked being at school more.
It's hard to focus on Zoom.
Well, I think that is it for our podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.
thank you.
Bye.
Hey guys, it's Diego. I just wanted to start us off by saying thank you to Tony, Brenda, Shawnee, and Stephanie for speaking honestly and truthfully about their experiences through March of 2020 to 2021 of their COVID experience and reflection. And this kind of tended to be the case to everybody and throughout the podcast, so I was really excited to it was just a pleasure to be hearing all you guys speak honestly and truthfully, and I think that provided an entertaining podcast personally, and I was hoping that you guys would send me entertaining stuff. So yeah, I can't wait for you guys to hear the rest. There's a lot of relatable stuff in here, like Brenda talking about how in the beginning of COVID, how she spent way more time with her family than usual, and this was so relatable. So there's just little things like that throughout this podcast that I can't wait for you guys to hear. And I'm going to be supplying 5-minute breaks here and there throughout this podcast as well. So just kick back, relax, and here's Brock and Gillen for their next podcast. Can't wait for you guys to hear it.
All right, Brock, what was school like this year for you? And include last year with the start of COVID all the way to now. We're almost at the end of it.
Last year it was pretty chill, to be honest. Like, we didn't go to school, we just did some online Canvas stuff. We didn't even have to Zoom or anything like that. And then this year was a little more difficult because we actually had to Zoom and be at school. Zooming was a little difficult for me because, I don't know, it's hard to pay attention when you're just chilling by yourself. And then starting to come in school, it started getting a lot easier for me. So I paid attention a lot more, and the teachers helped me a lot more. So yeah.
All right, so with your social life and your life outside of school, what were some key things that you started over COVID? That maybe projects or things you like to do now that you didn't do before? Or what's your usual weekend look like?
There wasn't that many gatherings, if you know what I mean, in the start of COVID because everyone was kind of sketched, didn't know really much about this virus. And then it started opening up after a few months, and I just hung out with my family a lot since there wasn't much to do. I couldn't really go out to eat that much. A lot of places were closed. Yeah.
All right, so dual sport varsity athlete. What was football like for you? Because I know we had a long, extra long football season.
Football was pretty exhausting because we started last year, and we usually go throughout the summer, and we weren't sure if we were going to have a season, so we were just practicing, hoping for one. So we just kept on practicing for months until we finally were promised one in January. So it was pretty nice.
We were promised one in January, and then we didn't get it until freaking April.
Yeah.
All right, so.
All right, I'm here with Gillen Nickerson. And how was school throughout this COVID?
So, it all kind of shut down last March, and then I just kind of stopped doing homework. I thought we were kind of done with school, and it was just a lot of extra busy work that wasn't needed, But coming into this year, didn't go to school for the first half, just kind of stayed on Zoom, but now we're here. It's not easy, it's not hard, it's whatever.
All right, so yeah, that was Gillen and Brock, and there's a lot of good content in here. I mean, I was a part of that football season, and I can definitely speak on how exhausting that season was. I mean, that was one thing. That was just my experience, their experience. Brock talked about how he did better in school with physical attendance, and personally, I feel like I did better with online attendance. So here's yet again all these different little ways people experienced COVID. But Gillen, I think this is relatable for all of us, but Gillen said he gave up in school at one point, and I definitely felt like I agreed with this. I mean, this was kind of a dream for high school students in a way, if I kind of could open your guys' minds. I mean, what high school in what date, what year could say that they experienced something like this? I mean, there's nothing relatable to COVID. I mean, COVID has been such a unique experience in and of itself. So this is kind of a high schooler's dream, to just be at home all day and just to have school online. I mean, but some people didn't really like that for as long as others. So next we're going to be getting to Ezel's podcast, and can't wait for you guys to hear.
Hey, I'm Ezel Chavez, your host for this podcast, talking about how COVID has affected me and my family. Okay, so it just brought us more together, and it connected us more. COVID expressions that I hate. put your mask on. My greatest loss would be not being able to hang out with friends, because we would go out like every weekend and that had to stop because of lockdown. Zoom class was actually kind of fun for me because I would get to sleep during classes and do whatever I wanted, really. Returning to school is a good and a bad. I get both of them, but I don't really get how the school did it personally, like having everyone like forced to be at school, because now there's like very high chance of people getting it because everyone's here now at the school. I think that it should be a choice to those who don't feel comfortable coming to school and don't have a medical note. But that's just me. This is the end of my podcast. Hope you have a wonderful day.
So that was Azel's podcast, and I can definitely relate to how she liked online school. Personally, I liked it for the entire time until I was forced to come back, but you'll see that there's a variety of that among students, a variety of opinions among students on online school and when they liked it and why they liked it. So next we're going to be getting into Emily Dabowski's podcast, and I can't wait for you guys to hear.
Hello, this is Emily Dabowski, and today I'm going to be talking about how COVID has affected me in the past year. Let's just start at the beginning. In, March of last year, when we first got quarantined, I took it as, I was excited because I was like, oh, school off, we'll be back to normal so quickly, just as everyone else thought. And I was so happy to have this time off that I could be just hanging with my friends all the time. And quickly I was proved wrong, and I was stuck in my house with my 6 family members, and it was complete chaos most of the time. And in the beginning I started getting very depressed and struggling a lot because I was forced to be alone with my thoughts and with my family, who I quickly realized I had no idea who they were anymore. And it was a really hard time for me in the beginning. But the one thing that saved me was the ability to drive and go different places alone, because that's all I was allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to see anyone. And so I started going to different parks or different places in nature and just hang out with myself, and I found that to be very therapeutic and awakening for me. And I quickly realized that during this time I could choose to be sad and hate that the world is being like this, or I could choose to take this time for myself and find who I truly was, because I was so wrapped up in my life and always being busy doing things with people. I didn't take a chance to step back and think, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? And so quarantine kind of forced me to figure out who I was and have this spiritual awakening that I had. And it was an amazing thing, and I pray that everyone else is able to relate to this, because it is so amazing the person I can say I am today compared to the person I was before COVID happened. And it's honestly a blessing, and I'm so thankful that I took the opportunity to make a change in my life and be a better person rather than completely just be the same person and be horrible and just hate on COVID and how it ruined everyone's lives, which I know it had ruined lots of people's lives. I know there's so many negative aspects to it. People have died. It's horrible. I wish we didn't have to experience that aspect of it. But also in life, you have to always find something positive in it. And I'm happy that I was able to find that positive and focus on it. So that's how COVID affected me, and I hope everyone else can have a positive outlook on it as well. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Emily, for speaking honestly and truthfully about your experience during COVID. So Emily talked about how there was chaos it felt like there was chaos in her home when COVID first started, and Brenda and that group kind of talked about it, and I can definitely relate. I mean, if there's that many siblings and you're both your parents living in the same home, it's hard to get time to yourself, and time to yourself, I believe, I really stress that it's important, and that's something that Emily, it sounds like she hadn't done, but because of COVID, allowed her to do and gave her time to reflect and found herself in a way. So I pray that you just continue this, and it's a beautiful story that I think there's a lot of positive things that came from COVID, and there's just stories to tell like that. So next we are going to be getting into Braden's podcast, and yeah.
So when COVID all started, I went on quarantine for 40 days with my family and took it pretty seriously because we didn't know what was really going on. But then once we started learning some more about the whole coronavirus and all that stuff, my family just kind of took it lightly because it wouldn't really affect us even if we did get it. So during the whole rest of quarantine and when everything was shut down, we spent most of our time up at Lake Nasamino pretty much every weekend on our boat, having a good time. There was also some other families up there that we would go with. And up there, I mean, we could go to the stores without a mask, and everything was really cool. So it was kind of like a getaway from the whole COVID situation. That's what I spent most of my time doing, but I missed out on like all the concerts and fair that we would have normally done, but I mean, it's all right. The lake made up for it.
So yeah, that was Braden, and my family, when COVID started, we were skeptical, but we still did what we needed to do. You know, Braden, I remember Braden, and he was locked up, man. He was restricted pretty hard, quarantined for 40 days, and I felt bad, you know, and I'm happy that over time they kind of did their research, as most families did, and just I felt like quarantining was kind of unnecessary. I don't know. I don't think the virus in of itself got any stronger. It's just the quicker you got it, the quicker you were to be immune to it. You know, that's just me personally, my feelings on it. But you know, I'm happy that their family made the decisions to stay safe, and you know, that's their decision. So I love it. And Nasi was Braden and his family's getaway, and other families' getaway, and I think we all had our own little getaways, our own little hobbies we found throughout COVID. So next we're gonna be getting into Noah Scarta's podcast, and yeah. But before we get into the podcast, we're gonna start a 5-minute break. So pause the podcast now.
Hi, I'm going to be talking to you about more the beginning of when this whole pandemic started. So, I remember it being about March, playing baseball, enjoying the year like normal, about to start playing in league, and then all of a sudden, I get this text from my mom saying, "I think your season's canceled." And the first thing I thought is she was joking with me, and I was kind of confused and nervous. And then after practice, our coach explained that we have to take 2 weeks off, and after our 2 weeks to flatten the curve, we should be able to come back. So we were pretty hopeful at first. So that night, me, my mom, and my sister went out to like art stores and bought supplies to give us stuff to do while stuck at home, so we didn't totally attack each other. And then I watched Gavin Newsom's press conference, and then he extended it out. And the first thing I thought was, I feel bad for the seniors because their year's totally shot. Little did I know, their year and most of my senior year would be destroyed as well. And so when it first started, I was pretty motivated to stay in shape for sports because I thought we'd still have sports. And then after about a month or two, I really started to relax and kind of accept the fact. So I guess I was kind of in denial. And then that lack of motivation kind of carried me into this year as well, which I kind of regret, but at the same time, not much I can do about it now.
So, just like Noah said, I mean, there wasn't much you could do about it. And that's kind of how generally feel like we all felt. I mean, there wasn't much we could do about COVID itself. I mean, we all kind of felt stuck at home. Um, a lot of time to ourselves. I mean, not much we could do. So, and I felt like we all had a little impactful moment during that month in March of 2020. Something hit in all of our hearts, something was taken. I don't know exactly what, but something was. And it definitely varies on how much was taken on a scale um, amongst the students and just people in general during COVID. Next, we're going to be getting into Caleb's podcast, and this one's really beautiful, so I can't wait for you guys to hear this.
Throughout the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were definitely ups and downs, but for sure more downs than ups. One of my greatest losses was honestly just losing a lot of the people that I was closest to. Some of the friends I had, we stopped hanging out because of the restrictions COVID came with. It kind of sucks that it had to be that way, but there's just nothing we could do. It was a horrible year all around. It started terrible, ended terrible. Just all of 2020 was not good at all. So I lost a lot of friends and a lot of relationships that I was like close with, and but the one thing that did save me, well, I guess helped a lot with that. The one thing that was open throughout this entire time of the pandemic, at least in our area, was golf courses. So obviously I'm a golfer. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know that. So the only thing that was open around here was golf courses, which I love to golf. So I spent hours and hours and days out on the golf course just trying to change the topic of COVID and everything going on to the nature around me, and just enjoying being able to go out and have fun with, I mean, sometimes it was by myself, but there was definitely other golfers out there that played once in a while, but kind of being able to focus on what you're working on in that specific point in your life, or either on and off the golf course. Sometimes thinking out in the fresh air and walking and listening to the birds sing and just enjoying the peace and mind around you really helps with your mental state. And I feel like if it weren't for that, if golf courses weren't open and they were closed during this entire time, I'm not sure where I would be right now. But we got through it and we're almost done with this, so hopefully it comes to an end as soon as it possibly can, and I'm ready to get life on the road.
Yeah, so I've found Caleb's podcast to be really honest, really beautiful, really relatable to me personally. He talked about how he lost a lot of friends during this time period, and in a way I can definitely relate. I mean, it was natural for everybody to kind of go into their own homes and to appreciate the families during this time. And because of that, I think a lot of friendships were just kind of lost. And I thank God that Caleb had the golf course. I thank God I had music in my life. I thank God that we have these hobbies to keep us, keep our minds from just getting overcrowded. Something interesting is we make 35,000 or a ridiculous amount of I think it's 35,000 decisions per day. And that's per day. That's kind of ridiculous. So when there's 35,000 decisions per day, things are going to get lost along the way, And it's important to reflect on those things and to value those things, because if you do, that's how you slow down time. And if you slow down time, you preserve life. And if you preserve life, I believe that makes you more happier, So Caleb found these things to help him preserve life to appreciate the value in life, and I'm glad he did. Next, we are going to be getting into Logan Adams' podcast and just kind of how he felt.
All right, COVID podcast. This is just Paul speaking by himself. So I'll just get right into the question. How did COVID affect your family, and what kind of helped your family get through it? I would say just being able to spend more time with each other. Lockdown did kind of suck, but being able to spend more time with family and hang out more and find new things that we like to do as a family was a really nice thing. My family doesn't really get to spend too much time uninterrupted together because we're always either running around at work or playing sports or whatever it is, helping extended families. So it was really nice to be able to spend more time together and also to kind of learn more about each other when it came to worldviews and stuff like that. It was really fun. So lockdown didn't actually end up being too bad for my family. So that's that.
Yeah, I think Logan hit more on the spending time with family more than kind of anybody else in this podcast. He kind of had to find ways, in a way, and I felt like in my family we kind of had to find ways to bond, just different ways to bond, because we were spending a lot of time with each other. So we were trying board games and whatnot, and just different ways to bond. So I'm glad Logan and his family got time with each other, and now we are going to be getting into Callie's podcast, which is located in Tornado.
Blessings. Blessings are a big part of one's life. Whether they are small or big, everyone at some point has a blessing in their life. I was blessed during COVID because my older brother moved back home for a short period of time. Although in his first week of being home, he got COVID, and it was super annoying that I had to stay inside, I was very thankful and felt very blessed that no one else in my family got it, and my brother only had a fever for a few days. I also felt blessed during this year of COVID because of how hard St. Joe's worked for us to get back to school. Although I was content to be in Zoom in my room, I feel so blessed that God put such hardworking and loving individuals in my life that worked hard to get students back on campus. Overall, COVID sucked, and it breaks my heart knowing so many people have passed this year. But in my life, it's the little blessings that occurred during this time that made staying at home all worth it in the end.
Yeah, so overall, Callie kind of talked about how she was forced to kind of stay inside here and there, but her brother moved back into her home. So that's super exciting, and I'm super excited for her and just the rekindleship of her sibling. She was happy that St. Joe's really was able to get back on its feet and get back into physical school, and I could not agree more. I think it was the whole staff probably. I have no idea what they did, but they probably had to push really hard to get to the point where we are at right now with physical school. So yeah, I appreciate that, like Callie pointed out. Next, we're getting into Ryan's podcast. So here it is.
COVID-19 didn't really affect my family or anyone. No one in my family close got COVID-19. I've never had it, and this whole year I've been, besides the first month when it first happened, I was kind of locked at my house, didn't really do anything. But after that, my dad let us do whatever, and I've been out and about hanging out with anyone pretty much every day, different people, different places, and I still haven't gotten COVID, never been sick, been fine through the whole time. Zooming during COVID this year sucked because you had to be at home Zooming every class, and it was it was kind of stupid because I like last year when we did it, as the teachers just gave us assignments and we had to finish it by the end of the day, because during that I worked all day, and then also after work I go hang out, go to the beach, go have fun, go party, whatever. So it was nice because I had money and I was able to go hang out with friends.
Yeah, so this was a whole different type of story with COVID. Ryan really wasn't affected in any type of way during COVID, except for, kind of in the beginning when there was slight restrictions. But yeah, Ryan wasn't really affected too harshly per se compared to other people, in all honesty. But there were struggles, of course, that he went through that I cannot, of course, undermine. I mean, he probably I know Ryan himself, he's a very happy, giggly guy. He's probably laughing right now, and he probably loves physical school, and like he said in his podcast, he does. So when he was forced to go online school, to do online school, I can kind of sympathize for him. I'm sure he liked it within the first maybe month or two, but over time, as most students did, they kind of lost interest in it. So I'm happy he is back where he's at now. Now we're getting into Ogre's podcast, or Daniel. So here it is.
So when COVID hit, it honestly didn't really affect my family a whole lot because my dad's an electrical contractor. So it honestly, in the end, just made him more busy because he just got a lot more calls. And the main COVID expressions that I honestly hated the most was probably masked up, because I hate masks. It just made it hard to breathe, and just everything about them just sucked. And honestly, the greatest loss because of COVID was school, probably, because you missed out on a lot, especially being a senior. Missed out on the senior year and a lot of things that you get, hanging out with friends and all that stuff. And what I did to survive the lockdown was I did camping a lot, and I went riding my dirt bikes with my buddies. Went fishing, just a lot of outdoor activities, the main stuff. And the Zoom on school, I mean, it was all right, but I feel like it just gave a lot of people the opportunity to just slack off and not do things. But in all, it's whatever's.
All right, so that was Daniel, and that was yet again another story on how COVID can affect a person differently. Like his dad, his business, instead of decreasing, it actually increased in income, and that is a blessing. So I'm happy that his dad maintained that financial status. I as well hated masks. Personally, I don't think they helped at all. I actually know they didn't help at all, but you can look that up for yourself. I also missed hanging out with friends, but my hobbies kept me busy, and same with Ogre. He camped, fished, rode bikes a lot. So sounds like a lot of fun to spend your hobbies and just have that time. So next we're getting into Tyler's podcast.
My name is Tyler Williams, and some of the few things I pull out from living through a global pandemic is that family's always going to be there for you no matter what. No matter what's going on in the world, no matter what you may be going through as an individual, family will always be there for you to support you and your aspirations and your goals. Another thing is God will always be there for you as well. I've learned that whenever something as scary as COVID is going on, there's not really any doctor that can tell you anything to make you feel okay. Everyone's really freaking out about it, but I just trusted and believed in God's hands that everything would eventually go back to normal, and we're slowly making progress to being almost completely back to normal. So trusting in God has definitely helped me survive through this pandemic, as well as having my family. And so I've really come to value those things, and I also value how big of an impact one person can have on your day. Like, whether it's just them giving you a compliment or saying good morning. I've learned that a little deed can go a long way, depending on who the person is, and you don't really know what they're going through, any of that. So I've learned that you can have a positive impact on anyone, no matter your situation or theirs.
Yeah, so that was Tyler, And I just want to talk about a few things in his podcast because I think he presented a lot of good topics to talk about. I think he gained two of the best morals you could possibly learn on earth ever, which is, you can always trust God and you can always trust family. One, God's always going to be there for you, consciously, mentally. You can always turn to them. And two, family. You can always, if they're true family members, you can always turn to family because that's what God would do for you. God wouldn't just abandon you in a prison if you committed a crime. He would go to your cell, or at least, try to talk to you at the window. And that's what a family member should do to you. If that's, of course, in all case, like that's the worst case scenario. You're locked up, but as a family member, you should always be there for your blood. Oh my gosh, jeez, I'm gonna keep that. That was a voice crack. But anyways, one more thing that Tyler talked about in his podcast was how one person can impact his day, and I've noticed in Tyler ever since I met him, probably late sophomore year, is how he's not afraid to give a compliment, and this is something I admire about Tyler, and I've always kind of been slightly more introverted, but I try to be more like Tyler. I think about how as an 8-year-old, if I got a compliment from a high schooler, that would make my month, So I just try to do this, keep that in mind with other people. One person, one compliment can really affect a person's day, and so I really appreciate how Tyler pointed that out. And it's not hard to make a person's day, especially during these times. Next, we're getting into Steven and Sebastian's podcast.
My name is Steven Vasquez, and I'm here with
Sebastian Ramirez. Steve, how did your family do during the COVID first hit?
My family did all right. We definitely toned things down a little bit more at first, just when no one really knew much about what was going on and what was happening and the virus and all that stuff. But my dad still continued to go to work at the prison in SLO, and my mom went to work as well in her office in Santa Maria. So, other than that, it was just a little bit less going out. But, now that we have more knowledge, more information about everything, stuff's getting pretty back to normal. Seabass, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm sort of going to piggyback on you. My parents both, they still worked. My dad, he still did the same thing. He also did his own thing. Like, he would work at his own shop. And then my mom, she worked at a doctor's office, so it was a little different. They did take a break, I think, for a month, what you said when they're trying to figure out, how this COVID thing is hitting. Yeah, Steve. So, on your free time, when we all started figuring out what COVID was, like, what did you start doing? Did you start going out more, or were you more still stuck inside all day?
I was chilling at home, gaming a little bit more, but with my friends. But then, as the weeks went on, I would hang out with, my other friends like Logan, Darian, and Anthony, and we'd all go to the lake normally to just isolate by ourselves. But that was my group, or the pods that we would call it back then. So, just hung around those people a lot more, and it was good to see my friends more during that time rather than just going out all the time. How about you, Steve?
Oh yeah, obviously, we did go fishing. I do agree that we still as a pod, we follow COVID protocols. We went fishing. We hung out with each other. We don't do too much with other people. I also feel like we took fitness as a big thing too. I feel like we all worked out together. We played a lot of basketball together. And yeah.
Seabass, one last question. In regards to the COVID-19 vaccine shot, how do you feel about it?
I don't think I'm going to get it anytime soon. I don't think I'm planning on getting it. I'm definitely going to figure out how to get a fake card. What about you, Steve?
It's a lot of mixed feelings in regards to everything that's going on. There's people that say to get it, people that say to not get it, but it's suspect as to how we have a COVID shot, but we don't have cancer shot or HIV shot. So everything's mixed feelings, but just like you said, I don't plan on getting it anytime soon. until who knows when.
Yeah, and then COVID. Did you ever get COVID, Steven?
I did. I am 97,000% sure that I got it from Logan Martinez. Logan didn't want to tell us he didn't feel good, and we all proceeded to go to his house. So we all had it around the Christmas time. So I did have to quarantine with my family throughout Christmas and New Year's. So big shout out to Logan. How about you, Seabass?
Yeah, so like what you said, bro. We all hung out. I think it's literally like 4 days in a row, huh? Back to back days. We're all hanging out 4 days in a row when he came back from Arizona. We took 1 day break, and the next day we texted each other, and we all talked about the same symptoms. And Logan said that he felt the same way 2 days before that. So I do agree that it's Logan's fault, and he still doesn't admit to this day. But
the truth will set you free.
Okay, so that was Steven and Sebastian's podcast as they brought up a lot of good topics and points. Before I get into those topics and points, I just wanted to kind of give two little heads ups, I guess. One, as you can see, I'm kind of missing drawings to put up for the podcast, and those previous images were pictures and drawings done by me for my AP art portfolio. I believe that will be sent out by email through the school, and if not, you can ask me for the meaning of each picture. They kind of reflect on my time during COVID, and it's used more through imagery instead of a podcast. So that's kind of my way of speaking on this podcast. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. Number two, if you want as a class to keep on going and get this video over with, you can. But if you don't, I'm giving you guys the option to take a 5-minute break. So pause the video right now. Okay, so getting back into the podcast, we're going to talk about how everything was kind of normal for both sets of parents. Besides Sebastian's mom taking a 1-month delay in her workplace, I'm sure this didn't break the bank exactly, so I thank God for that. And this was kind of a blessing for both sets of parents and their families, so I thank God for that. This was the same case for my parents. My dad actually works as the same job that Steven's dad does, and my mom does the same job that Steven's mom does, so we were both extremely lucky. Another thing that they had is they hung out kind of with their inner circle, and this was something that a lot of people, I think, benefited from if they had in COVID, was just a group of friends to just spend time with. Like going to the lake sounded like a lot of fun, and just playing basketball together sounded like a lot of fun. So I'm really happy that they got to do that together. And last topic was getting a vaccine. I'm just like Sebastian and Steven, where I think I'm going to prevent myself getting that vaccine for as long as I possibly can. But that is just me personally. And I found the story when Steven got COVID because of Logan and Sebastian got COVID because of Logan. I found that story hilarious from the first time I heard it. So, yeah. Next, we are going to be getting to a little bit of different stories with people who have strictly been online school for the entire year. These are different little takes on COVID itself and online school. So we're starting it off with Nadia.
So what I'm going to talk about is my experience as a distance learner or a Zoomer. So I've stayed on Zoom this whole school year, except only one day, and that was just to see how it was. And I stay on Zoom for personal reasons, and my experience of being a Zoomer is not what I had expected. The positives are staying in your pajamas and being in my house and eating secretly when the teachers aren't, not looking. But it does get repetitive and kind of lonely after a while. Every day feels slow and the same, and it's definitely not what I expected and thought of since the starting of the school year. But I am, really happy that senior year is almost over, but also a little sad because I didn't get to experience it fully. But hopefully next year will be better and the seniors won't have to experience what I did.
Yeah, so that was Nadia, and there was definitely a few points in there that I can definitely agree with. One being the pajamas. I was homeschooled K through 8, so I was definitely missing pajamas. Um, that was just such a blessing, being able to wear whatever I wanted to wear during school and do whatever I wanted to do in a way. Um, Another point I can definitely agree with was how every day kind of felt slow, and I can definitely agree with that. I felt like a lot of days were repetitive and it kind of got boring at some points, but all in all, I think me and Nadia made the best of it. And but she hoped that she would have a normal senior year, and I hope that as well. And I hope and pray that it won't be that same case for the next year's seniors, and she does as well. So, yeah. Next, we're going to be getting into Elijah's podcast.
Hi, my name is Elijah Cavazos, and I just wanted to talk about how the pandemic was over the school year. As some people may know, my dad had corona, and it was really hard on me. It was hard on me to just see and hear him, how he was. It was to the point where I didn't even want to answer the phone because of how bad it made me feel to hear him like that. So because of that, I had to go on Zoom school. And Zoom school was honestly really difficult at the very beginning. But once I got the hang of it, it's gotten better. But it's not the same as going back to regular school. It's been really hard to meet up with friends because we've all had to maintain COVID regulations. So we can't even really hang out and in the same room because we really can't. But we've made the most out of it, even though we do have to follow these COVID regulations. And every time we've met up, it's honestly been the most fun I've ever had during this pandemic.
Yeah, so that was Elijah. And in all honesty and truthfully, I did not know about Elijah's dad. But now that I do know, I will just keep him in my mind and in my prayers. And if he is healed, I praise God. If he isn't, I will continue to keep him in my prayers. And it just sucks that you were forced to be put into online school. Next, we're getting into Nathan Nunez's podcast. So here it is.
Doing school online during COVID was very foreign at first, but then turned out to be something I enjoyed. One of the main issues with doing online school was you never got to see your friends, besides the little square boxes of their faces or ceilings. But I never had an issue with it because I still was able to talk to my friends through social media and also while playing video games outside of school time. A really positive outcome of COVID was the fact that people were not as busy as they would regularly be, and it gave them more free time and a chance to spend time with people that they care about. But a more personal positive to come out of this is I had to undergo surgery, and although that's not quite a good thing, with the distance learning setup that was in place, I was able to return to classes sooner while still recovering, and I believe that if I was physically attending the class, I would have missed more school, and I don't know if I would have been able to catch up. So in this case, 2 negatives ended up making a positive and helping me reach the graduation platform.
This was Nathan Nunez, and 2 points that I found really engaging in his podcast were how people weren't as busy in general. I feel like most people weren't as busy. COVID gave a lot of time to ourselves, and this allowed to see who is really the closest ones to you. This was like a test in a way. COVID was a test to see who's fake and who's not, and yeah. Another point that Nathan pointed out was how the two negatives made a positive due to his injury, and I think it takes a mature mind, an emotional in tuned mind, to point that out, and I just want to congratulate Nathan for persevering through that. Next, we have Sofia Cordova and her podcast.
Hi, my name is Sophie Cordova, and I'm here to talk about my experience with the pandemic. It really taught me to appreciate the little things and to live in the moment. Before, we were all asking for time to just stop and pause. Why can't we just take a break from everything? And honestly, we got that break, believe it or not. We got it through the pandemic. We got it through the quarantine. Even though it wasn't the best and it wasn't the break we wanted, but it was the break we needed. It definitely helped us grow and helped us understand ourselves a lot better. It helped me understand myself a lot better, to be honest. What I did during the pandemic is I started to grow a succulent garden. It's still in my window and they're still very healthy and taken care of, but I found a new passion for plants. And I also, what else did I do? Oh, I led a retreat. Should have mentioned that first. But I led a retreat called SAW, or Sign, Anoint, and to Witness, through Zoom. We were supposed to go in person in Montecito, but COVID. And it was really fun, to be honest. I expected it to be fun, but I didn't expect it to be this fun through Zoom. I got to help young leaders grow into their skills, and I got to teach them how to create witness talks and just see them have fun, even though it wasn't the ideal setting. This year, we're actually supposed to do it in person. I'm supposed to lead it in person with my fellow leaders, and I'm really excited about that. But we're going to talk about COVID, talk about the pandemic. I also, me and a group of friends, we figured out how to connect with each other through quarantine. We FaceTimed every night. We played Uno, we played Minecraft, we played all these little digital things. Or we'd play Paranoia, where you'd text someone a question and then they'd say a name. And if, either coin says this or that, you tell the person why they said your name or why they didn't. It's a fun little game. It's definitely better played than explained. But, yeah, we FaceTimed every night. And I did the same for the person I was dating at that time. Yeah, having a relationship in the pandemic was not ideal. It was not the best, but we pushed through, and I felt like it made our relationship stronger. We did end up breaking up later on, but that wasn't because of the pandemic. The pandemic really, I felt like it was a test, to be honest. It was a test of connection. It was a test of vulnerability. It was definitely a test of how you can function being alone, to be honest. Like, yeah, you have your family and your household. Yeah, you have your FaceTime, but all said and done, you're alone. You're on your phone watching TikToks. You're drawing. You're doing whatever you're doing. And, it taught me personally to enjoy it. To enjoy being alone. To enjoy just being with myself, to actually tolerate being alone, because I know not many people can do that. And I feel like that's an important skill now for when I move to college and I move to Santa Barbara, because yeah, I'll meet friends and roommates, but at the beginning I might be alone, and that's okay, because I learned that it's okay to be alone. It's okay to be with yourself. I did have one person close to me, the person I was dating. He got COVID. He's fine. He recovered from it. But it was still pretty scary. I remember when he told me, I was like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need me to DoorDash you food?" He's like, "Sophie, it's fine. I didn't want to tell you." He told me the day, maybe like 2 days after he found out, which was like stupid. He should have told me in the first place. But he knew I would get worried and whatnot. But he was okay. I did end up DoorDashing him food. But yeah, that was kind of a little shock when that happened. I definitely learned through quarantine and the weird Zoom school period we had that I honestly do not do well during Zoom classes. Like, I'm definitely better in person. There's some benefits of doing it through Zoom, but I definitely miss the interaction and the one-on-one type of connection with the teachers, and I'm glad we have that now. But, that's something I learned too. What else? Oh, I also started to redecorate my room and reorganize it during COVID, which was kind of cool. I have this little setup right by my bed. There's a bunch of records that I collect. I grew my collection over COVID too. which was great. I don't know, it was a lot. It was a period of transformation for me. It was definitely a period of self-realization and organization and really just being comfortable with myself, and I really appreciate it. Even though the pandemic sucked. It sucked to have COVID, and it sucked to experience a loved one have COVID, but the experience is going to stay with me forever. So I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to end this right there.